Here we go again. We're back. The Referees a Podcast, Season 3. Can you believe it, Jack?
Can you believe it, ladies and gentlemen? Your favourite Scottish football duo are back for some more Scottish chip action. Season 3, Cam. Can you believe it?
No, not really, but we are here. Pinching myself, is it true? It feels true, that was sore.
Oh, God, really, man? I don't know if I need to do the same here. Unfortunately, the listeners still can't see us, which I kind of realised 5 minutes before we started that I still haven't fixed that problem.
Yeah.
So I do apologise, listeners. I think I've been taking the holiday break a little too literally.
Yeah. So we have obviously been away in the off season. We didn't really come to a definitive closing point on last season. As anyone listening long term will know, this is just a side bit. We've got full time jobs and life gets in the way quite often. So this is one of the most irregular podcasts in the Scottish Championship football scene. But that's okay.
I
But
still maintain, Cam, we're the only dedicated championship podcast. I've still to
uh,
see there's champion podcasts that might mention the championship, but I think our listeners love us because of the dedication to true championshipness.
well, we're the only true voice in the whole of the championship. Obviously, championship teams all have their own specific team podcasts, etc. But yes, I'd say that I don't know anyone else willing to talk exclusively about the Scottish Championship like we seem to be more than happy to do. So yeah, we'll fill that void for all you few back listening at home. A wee shout out to James as he did actually comment just 21 days ago, 22 days ago. Is the podcast coming back next season, lads? James, yes, it is. We are back.
Oh, brilliant. I love that. I must have missed that message from James. So, James, I love how we've got at least one keen and excited listener, and that's come up. We're going to keep on top of more, isn't it? I'm going to be more active on the socials when I can be. We're going to be reading more comments. So, any opinion, what we want to really try and do is give you, listeners, this season a platform to share your opinion as much as we share ours. We want to create this as a community for the Scottish Championship and can create something special here because it is a special league. So it's the third season. Let's give it a go.
Too right. Now, in true holiday fashion, I don't know about yourself, but I've not been keeping too up to date and too fully versed on the comings and goings of the other championship teams. I know very well and good the business of Queen's Park, and I know that you know very well the business of Partick Thistle. So we'll certainly start at those points. A busy off season in both camps. Let's start off with yourself. Actually, no. Let's start off with us because ours will lead into yours quite nicely, I think.
Yeah, go for it.
So obviously, end of last season, no one knows what's happening. Queens Park wise, no one has a contract. We don't know if there's money. We still don't know, as of recording this podcast, where this money's coming from. We can't help but feel there's going to be some kind of generally disliked announcement coming at some point, but who knows? It might be something good. It's just you always feel like Queen's Park are not announcing something. It's because it's probably not very good, but you can be surprised. But the money's there. Contracts getting signed left and right, every other day. Aidan Connolly's signed on. Ewan Murray's signed on. Everyone essentially, all the main key components. Few players sort of went on and still not really heard anything about, but Aidan McGinley and Roddy McGregor are two of the notables who've went on and don't appear to at the moment have another club. It's not like they've left to go elsewhere. I'm sure they will go
Well,
somewhere, but
I seen Roddy McGregor actually, just to say that yesterday, re-signed for a home club Inverness.
oh, has he? He's back off home. Yes,
Yeah,
fair
he
enough.
is. He's back up the road, and I always think of McGregor as one of those players that I still think there's a really good player in there with a bit of untapped potential. When you seen
Yeah,
him
I
first
like
come through at
McGregor.
Inverness.
Yeah.
I kind of feel as though by this stage of his career, he should be playing Premier League football, and it's obviously not quite worked out for him. Whether that's been niggly injuries or I'm not really sure, but technically he's a good player.
Oh, 100%. When he joined us, he had a really good League Cup campaign for us. I think he scored like, if it was 4 or 5 goals in the League Cup campaign in his first season, and then maybe scored like 1 goal the rest of the championship season. So when he came in, I was initially, right on the Roddy train, all steam ahead, But as that season went on, that belief did wane. He was weak, and he looked. How would I put it? He wasn't that confident. It looked like he felt like he couldn't perform at that level, and therefore his performance did fall away. And then yes, he has had a few decent injuries throughout this time. But maybe he's just fancying going home. He maybe wasn't quite working out for him here. And yeah, it's, a sad one to
Yeah,
see go, especially to a team in the same division. But we did get the core of the team signed back up, which I think was the main strategy, I suppose, at the end of last season.
yeah, definitely, and we'll get on to Inverness and maybe touch on a couple of the other teams as we maybe go through the predictions and our league tables, which we'll share a little later on in the episode for you listeners. But one of the things, just bringing it back to Queen's Park, is obviously, I'm not going to dwell on the point too much, but goalkeeper could potentially be a talking point throughout the season, I think, for Queens, as well
Yes.
the striking position, I feel. I think when I look at your team overall, solid enough defence, there's a decent midfield there, but, will you keep enough goals out and will you score enough? I think that's ultimately going to be the question.
Oh,
Do
I
you
don't know
see
about that,
somebody like
actually.
Jack Hamilton coming in and scoring a lot of goals?
I think this is the first season where we maybe don't actually have like a good proper main out and out striker. Like excluding maybe the Zach Rudden year, and even saying that, he scored a good amount of goals when it really came down to it at the end of the season. But we had Simon Murray, we had Rory Payton, we had Josh Fowler. So we always had the main man. This year we don't have the main man per se. But I think we have way more attacking options than we've ever had. You've got Mikey Ruth and Todorov signing back up. You've got Jack Hamilton coming in to offer a bit of competition. You've got Zebedee Lawson in on loan from Rangers, who can certainly play up that way. And you've got the other boy, Lewis Stewart. Is it Lewis? Winger, of course, but offers a lot of attacking intent. And he seems to really be able to hold onto the ball quite well and whip the balls in. And on top of that, you've got Aidan Connolly, again, tireless. He's a year older, but you wouldn't know it, seeing him running around on the pitch for 90 minutes, So I think up front, we're maybe certainly the fullest we've ever looked. Whether that does, translate into goals, I suppose that'll maybe depend on what I think has generally always been our weak area in terms of depth, which is the midfield. Scott Martin has obviously signed up full time for us this year, so him alongside Louis Longridge, I think, makes a nice sort of main starting pair. We'll have to see how the other Rangers loanee McCallion does. He obviously plays in there as well, so from what we've seen of him so far, he looks good. But yeah, it could maybe be a little tighter in defence, and certainly the goalkeeper situation with Callum Ferry disappearing off to Kilmarnock. I don't really know how we'll fare there. It'll be interesting to see us come up against Championship opposition. Obviously, only the League Cup so far, so not played another team at our level yet. So it's hard to say how it's all come together at the moment,
Yeah, definitely. And for listeners there, I'm sure they would have maybe grasped on by now, but you have taken over from Wraith Rovers with a cooperation loan agreement with Rangers. So you've got the
Yes.
three boys in there, and then also Ben Brannan, who's a really good young prospect that
Yes.
we've seen glimpses of through his time at Kilmarnock. I think he's also had a loan spell. Was it Inverness before as well?
Well,
So
you
he's
know
a good
better
young
than
player.
anyone, as Kilmarnock manager and the football man save.
Yeah, absolutely,
I'm
absolutely, I do.
happy to announce to the fans at home that I have been scouting and trying to take Ben Brannan of Curry's hands for years. So when I saw Queens Park, it brought him in on loan. I knew immediately there was a star in there. So yeah, it's the game life overtaken into the real world there.
The kind of crossover period, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's going to be interesting. So yeah, we'll come back to Queens Park and where we've got them placed in the league because I'm really intrigued actually, Cam, to find out where you're going to be
And
placing your side this season.
yeah, yeah. Well,
So
to
we'll kind of
move on
come
to
back to that.
yourselves. Obviously, we'll talk about the last bit that was unmentioned as of yet. There was obviously some players who also left the club to other pastures. One of them
Yes.
being Seb Drozd, who turncoated to the other side of the city to go and play for you bastards.
He has indeed, and it's been a kind of sort of mark of Thistle in the last couple of seasons, looking to kind of pick off, good players from other teams in the league, and we've seen that now come in with Ben Dempsey as well from Ayr United, who I think will be a really astute pickup. Paddy Redden, who also came in from Ayr at the beginning of last season, was excellent. So I think if you can kind of, find obviously your own good crop of players, but add in the best of what the rest in the league has to offer, you're onto a bit of a winning formula, Cam. The big kind of question for Thistle fans this season is purely, can we go one further? We've been on the cusp of promotion now for honestly what feels like eternity. I think that's 5 continuous playoff campaigns, 5 seasons of ultimate heartbreak. But last season certainly was the one where across the whole campaign for the most consistent period of time under Wilson and Ray, we looked like a really good side and we pushed St Johnstone really, really far. So when you touch upon there, the signing of Draws, the signing of Ben Dempsey, etc., Ewan Henderson coming in from Airdrie, who looked good, then when you consider that Thistle have got Ethan Ingram, who impressed on loan last season, and in a permanent deal to add to the deal to bring Bing McPherson in, Ben Stanway and Aidan Fitzpatrick have re-signed contracts when it's expected they were going to go. So for Thistle, it's great. The only concern I would have, not to kind of bring any downer on it, but it is a genuine concern I have for us is the goalkeeping position. And I know that's what you've spoken about with yourself, Cam. But obviously, we were in the position where we had Josh Clark.
Yeah.
The loan was set to turn into a permanent deal, but there was a clause that meant that if we didn't go up, he was kind of free to leave. He's been offered a deal down in England, which he's taken. And we've got Budinakis, who's a decent, good backup, but kind of, in my opinion, no more than that. And then we've
Yeah.
now brought in Liam McFarlane, 21-year-old on loan from Hearts, whose previous experience was at Alloa last season.
Right.
So
I've got a
they're
solution for
all
you here on that. You can have back David Mitchell.
no chance,
You can have him
no
back,
chance. You
honestly.
can
I'll drive him over to Firhill myself.
no. Well, see, I'll pay for his taxi fare back.
No, 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 no. You don't need to do that. You can stay. You can stay forever.
No, we
You
don't
can
want
you
Mitchell.
can
It's
just
okay.
set him up a wee cot in the stadium. He never has to leave.
Oh no, we don't want him back, but we certainly do. I feel we do need another goalkeeper, but I'm afraid that
A 36
we're
year
gonna
old with
go with
experience.
no. But I fear that we're gonna go with the two that we've got.
Yeah.
But I think overall, it's a good looking Thistle team coming into this season. There's no, for all Livingston have came down and they were a solid Premier League team for a few years. There's no gloringly massive team here.
Yeah.
That you're instantly going to go, well, they should win the league. I think this season you can just see Livingston as a good, strong championship team alongside a couple others.
You know what? It's actually very reminiscent of our first season doing the podcast, where obviously Livingston were there before, and no other Premiership team was there. Am I correct in saying that? Yes. And we thought,
Yeah.
Livingston are going to be shite, and obviously they were very good. And let's also then talk about the teams that are coming up this year, Steny and Inverness. Has either of
Yeah.
them got the ability to do a Falkirk from our first season doing this? Is any of them going to... Well, Steny's not going to do it. Is Inverness going to do the double promotion? Are they going to fly up?
I I am really impressed by Inverness's transfer business this
Yeah,
summer.
I remember you
For
saying
a
that.
club, right, that have went from being literally on the brink, of going out of business,
Yeah,
to having a really successful season last year and come into the championship. They've added boys like Graham Shanahan, with the experience.
yeah.
Alfie Babbage is back again. Roddy McGregor, previously spoken about, so, and that's just adding to kind of what they've got. So I think Inverness are going to be a really, really, really strong side, and it's going to be interesting. And I'm sure, with Ross County going down, they're a welcome addition to the league to have a nice wee
100%.
away day.
Yes, definitely. I love Inverness away, so I am very excited about them being back. And Steny, I'm sure I've touched on it, certainly with yourself. Don't know about it on the podcast, but obviously we had our season, maybe 2 seasons at Ockleview. No, just 1 season. I don't know. But it was great. I loved it. But I always looked away at the away section, the standing section behind the goal, and went, it'd be class to be over there. So it would be nice to be over there now. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, definitely. And Sterry are a really, really interesting one coming up, because it does give kind of our Broth vibes straight away. But I remember hearing Marvin Bartley, the Sterry manager, speaking. I think it was on Super Scoreboard the other night, and he was basically talking about how, yeah, they're part-time, yeah, they might be get comparisons to our Broth, but even our Broth have got a much, much bigger budget than what they do.
Yeah.
So I think there's gonna be levels this season. On the flip side, though, Steny topped the League Cup group, including Livy
Yeah.
and Thistle.
Yeah.
So, we need to take note of that as well, I feel.
100%. 100%. Now, obviously, the one thing to be mentioned is there's no, additional points for drawing and then it going to a penalty shootout and such. So the league will work a little bit differently. A draw is a draw. So, those little negligible changes that you get in the League Cup that allowed Steny to take that victory may not have gone down, but nothing to take away from the fact that they're certainly showing that they can play at the correct level. At least, obviously, I'm then going to caveat that with the fact that this is the League Cup group stages, and I say it every year. I try and never take very much from it, if anything, because it's just harken back to a point I made earlier on. First season of having Roddy McGregor, he scored 4 or 5 goals in the League Cup group stage, and then I don't know if he even scored that much by the end of his second season in the championship. So take everything with a pinch of salt, and this first game week coming up this weekend is going to be the first proper look, I think, at a wee sighter of where everyone is and what the season is going to be like, who's going to be good, who's not going to be good. I know you can't take very much from one game, but this will be the first sighter for me. I'm trying to reserve my judgments.
Definitely not. It's going to be really, really interesting. I think, as you said, the League Cup's that kind of balance of competitive games, but
Yeah.
still has that pre-season feel about it, doesn't it? So it's not really until now that you feel as though things are getting serious, and it's going to be really exciting, Cam. Really, really exciting. So I'm thinking about this, right? Should we start working through our predictions and our league tables and talk more about all the sides as we go and do it that way?
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
So
1 sec, sorry.
I'm thinking.
Going to get my iPad so I don't stop the recording.
Well, that's a very, very good idea because we don't have to stop and splice it again. No. But I was thinking we work ourselves bottom up. So we'll start at the 10th, go 9th, 8th, 7th, 6th, and work our way up that way. And listeners, obviously tell us exactly where we're going wrong. First and foremost, I want you to tell us why you're right and we're wrong in the comments, whether that's on YouTube, Spotify, messages in, email us, whatever your preferred method of choice is. And I also want you to tell us where your side is going to finish this season. And we will get back to everybody next week. But Cam, if you're ready, I've got my predictions open in front of me here.
I'm ready. You can take us off. Number 10.
Well, number 10, and I know there's a couple of really loyal supporters of this team listening, so they're
Yeah.
really, really not going to be pleased, Cam. But I think there's only one obvious place to start, and that is Greenock Morton. I
Yes.
think Greenock Morton are in an absolute terrible state just now. Now, I'm keen not to speak too much because this will do play them first game of the season at the Capitol. But when you look at the dire straits that Morton have been in over pre-season and not filling subs benches, almost full youth teams out for some games,
Yeah.
and massive disconnect between fan ownership, the fans themselves, who's running the club, where the money, just everything. It
Yeah.
seems an absolute nightmare at Morton just now, and they
100%.
really aren't in a good place, are they, Cam?
No, no, they're not. And it is the reason why I also have them at number 10. Just seeing, Murray had an interview where he said, they've got by far the smallest playing budget in the league, and things are not looking good, and, trying to ask for essentially for a bit of patience from the fans and stuff. But yeah, it doesn't feel like their problems are going to be able to be sorted with a little bit of patience. It can't help but feel that this is going to be a long-term issue that they're going to be fighting. It's a money flow issue, and you can't sort of solve it overnight. So yeah, can't help but think there's going to be a rough season ahead for the folk down in Greenock.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's not to say, like, Morton are completely doomed and won't pick up any points. There's still some sprinkling of really good players in that squad. We know what Eamon Brophy can do in his day. We know what Grant Savoury can do in his day. There's a really good young signing in Bobby McCluckie that's been signed as well. But,
Mm-hmm.
you look at the rest of the team, and there's not much championship quality, in my opinion, spread out enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've seen the quality in the league rise quite a lot in the last season or two across
Yeah.
the board. And I think Morton are almost becoming victims to not being able to keep up.
100%. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think obviously you touched on it earlier, but the spread of the championship this season is going to be, I think, a lot closer. Again, there's not necessarily a few sort of huge big hitters, nailed on favourites for the title. Obviously it's going to be quite potential. I don't want to jump to it yet. Obviously there's going to maybe be a little bit of a fight between two teams. But other than that, you've got to imagine that the spread is quite contained. So, I think all the positions from here on out are going to be, fairly fluid. But unfortunately, I think, it's hard to look past Morton, being that bottom team. So I don't know how long their stretch in the championship has been, but it's been a fair whack of time. So it will be strange
Yeah.
if it does turn out to be them that disappear down.
We made jokes for well, I should say years. It was 2 years, I suppose, on this podcast about how Morton would always be destined to be sixth, and
Yeah,
the most boring team. And what was it? One season, 12 draws, 12 wins, 12 defeats with a
yeah,
0 goal difference. And the same amount of goals scored and conceded.
yeah.
I want that Morton back.
Yeah,
In a certain extent, but I'm sure their fans kind of almost didn't realise what they had at the time. But yeah, it is what it is. Bad situation for Morton. Let's
for
see if they can
sure,
prove us wrong.
for sure.
Going on to number 9, Cam, is the first of the part-time teams for me. I've picked Stenhouse Muir
Yeah,
to finish in there at ninth. I think despite the good League Cup campaign, I think you summed it up pretty perfectly. The league's a different beast. And I think if they can finish ninth and stay up in the playoffs, that'll be an excellent season for them.
for sure. And I'm the exact same position. I've got Stenny down for number 9. Can't help but think, yeah, yes, they will, do fairly well. And as I mentioned, I think every position from 9 onwards here will be fairly fluid. It could be potentially as much as plus or minus 3 places, which sounds crazy when you're talking about a 10-team league. But the championship's always pretty close. So, it's a couple of results either way can completely swing the entire table, But yeah, I think Stenny have got a good chance of staying up, especially due to, maybe a little bit of what we saw from Arbroath last year, where maybe they don't get given enough credit, or the teams will consider it an easy win or a walkover, and you're able to catch teams out off guard and really hit them where it hurts. So you can certainly probably expect a certain amount of that this season. As you mentioned, part-time team, newly promoted, and teams can easily switch off at times, even more so when they think they don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, and what I can see is I can see Stenny, almost getting a couple of good wins and starting the season well. I think for me it'll be, that middle period of the season,
Yeah.
Around Christmas time, when everybody does seem to pick up injuries and suspensions and your squad's stretched and people begin to get tired, and that'll be the test for Stenny. So I'm really, really interested to see how their season's going. And, Marvin Bartley, obviously at the helm there. So that'll be a really, really interesting one. Obviously, he's a big character. So it'll be interesting to see how he
Yep,
does there.
definitely.
Moving on to eighth, Cam, I must say, I might be doing them a complete disservice here.
Yeah.
But I've got Arbroath in at eighth.
Okay.
And I tell you why I've got Arbroath
Yeah.
in at eighth is I just feel as though they had such an incredible season last year, and I definitely think you can class it as an overachievement. I think we still can't forget that they're part time.
Yes.
And I think that when I had a look at their squad, for as good as they are, and I says maybe I am just giving them a complete disservice. Again, almost along the same lines of what I was saying about Morton, I don't really feel as though Arbroath have improved their squad much this season. Just kind of looking at it from the outside in, and I kind of feel as though they've kind of maybe kept what they've got. Again, maybe I'm missing something here, but I kind of look at Arbroath and I kind of think decent team.
Yeah.
They'll just about stay up, and that's probably where they should be.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. I don't have Arbroath in that position. I may as well just say, because we'll get to it in a second anyway, I have them in 7th place. I too think that they'll have a drop off from them this season, but I think they're still going to be mighty competitive. They've still got, obviously what you're saying is they've not maybe made too many changes, but what they've got is a bit of continuity. And yes, while teams around them potentially have progressed, there was nothing wrong with the way that they played last year, and if they do the same as they done last year, even if the teams around them progress a little bit, I think that would allow for them to drop a few places, but still awfully competitive, and comfortable in a 7th place. In 8th place, just because I don't know enough about how it's all going to go for them, I have Inverness in 8th position. Obviously newly promoted, yes, done a lot of business. Obviously you're of the opinion good business. I have not looked into it enough to really give too much of an opinion, and again, sometimes teams coming together, lots of new players, trying to get the system together and stuff. Newly promoted team, maybe a touch of a struggle. So while I don't think they're going to be in any danger of dropping back down, I think they're going to have a fairly comfortable season. I think there'll be, essentially, I suppose the main point of it is there's every other team above them in my list here are all really good championship teams, and have done good business and have good players, and they're a quantity that I can sort of correlate to a bit more. But Inverness, new team, I just don't know enough. So 8th place for me, Inverness, and then 7th place, as I mentioned, Arbroath.
Nice. Well, obviously, I've said my 8th for Arbroath. I'm gonna actually save Cam where I've put Inverness in the table for a wee bit later, without giving that away too much. My 7th place team, you're not gonna like this, is Queen's Park. No, again, I kind of put you 7th for the kind of reason that I kind of maybe said earlier on, about maybe concerns about the goalkeeping situation.
Yeah.
I feel as though you've spoken about the striker situation, to be fair, really well, actually. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that does pan out, and to see the kind of spread of goals, if you like, for Queen's Park, rather than maybe one out-and-out striker.
Certainly the hope.
I do think, though, 7th is not a bad place for you, for you
I'd
either.
take
I think if that means, a 7th place finish and not really having to sweat in the last couple of weeks, I'm sure you would take that.
Yeah.
So, I don't think 7th's a disgrace, to say that. Now, what I will say is, I kind of feel as though for me, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth were by far the hardest positions to pick. And although this is a very much cop out, my third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, I really do feel are interchangeable.
Yeah.
But I'll start with sixth, and I've went with Wraith
Okay.
at sixth, which even I feel as though could be a bit harsh because when I do look at their team, it does look really good actually, and I don't know actually whether I'm just going to stick with it, right, Wraith
Well, you've
fans.
said
But
it now. It's in.
I'm now. I have said it now, but I'm now looking at your team again, and it does look really good actually.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I would put Wraith higher than sixth, but I've put them sixth.
Well, I'll tell you this. I do have them higher than sixth. In sixth place, I have Queen's Park.
Yeah, see,
Um,
that's probably about right.
but again, obviously, I've already used my cop out being the ninth to fucking third, basically. Not
Yeah.
interchangeable, but all within a close sort of point set. So certainly enough that a result or two would be enough to change it around. But yeah, I think the points that you bring up are solid. The keeper situation is questionable. Jack Wills hasn't had enough of a run in. I think he probably will be the main choice. I don't think it will be David Mitchell, but yeah, he's not a bad goalkeeper. It's hard to say. You've just not seen enough to really know, or enough of a stint to be able to really know how he is over a period of time. He's certainly got it in him to be a good shot stopper, and who knows really what he's got with the ball at his feet. But other than that, I'm fairly happy. So I think sixth place is achievable. It's where we ended last season. So that's that. If we can make that, I'd be a mighty happy fellow. Higher than that, ecstatic. But sixth place, I'd be very happy.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I just had that. Don't know about Wraith and sixth now, but I mean, when you do look at their team, I'm just going to speak about Wraith in general. They're a team. Emery doesn't play good football.
Yeah,
We can all say that, right?
100%.
But he seems to have built a team of footballers this season. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, John Robertson tearing it up in the divisions below for
Yeah,
a couple of seasons now.
100%.
Although, having seen him play a few times, it will be interesting to see how his attitude. Cam,
Right.
I don't know if you've seen him playing in the flesh, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've never seen a player so much just scream at his teammates for everything.
Yeah. Hi.
Like for everything. Even if he's not involved, he just screams at them that was rubbish and all that.
Aye.
Which, winning mentality and all that
Of
stuff, but
course.
how's that gonna translate over to full time professional footballers? I don't know.
Yeah, you've got to
But
be a team at the end of the day, and people don't like being criticised, generally speaking.
the thing I think Wraith though is can they keep their players fit?
Yeah.
That's going to be the big thing. You look at who they've got. Oakley and Dowds up front. Both very recently Ayr.
Yeah.
Both. You could say didn't work out to a certain extent. Although Dowds, had that decent-ish season,
Yeah.
but they're both no longer at Ayr. But can they keep them fit? Kyle Turner. Decent on his day at Thistle, but really poor last season. Injury problems as well.
Yeah.
Can they keep him fit? Lewis Vaughan, arguably up there with one of the best strikers in the league, but we all know about his injury issues. So I think Wraith's season hinges on the availability of these
Aye.
players more than anything
Yeah, for
else.
sure. Yeah, for sure. I can certainly see that. Yeah, and that could play a huge part depending on how many of them stay fit. But moving on, the top five now. In fifth place, a little bit lower than in previous years in terms of predictions, but certainly higher than they finished last year. Ayr United,
Yeah,
fifth place.
I've got Aaron fifth as well.
Don't see them getting out of, into the playoffs. Obviously they've for the last few seasons, finishing third place, not last year obviously, but the 2 seasons previous. Each year we were expecting them to take that leap forward, take that next step, and they just did not. They in fact went very, very far backwards. Got rid of Scott Brown. They've obviously got rid of a crap ton of the players, which was desperately needed because they had oversigned players for 2.5 seasons. and it just wasn't viable. They couldn't work out what their best team was. They got rid of Brown, and I can't help but think all of that's going to be for the better. They're going to improve on their position from last year without being able to go and really challenge and push on. But I think it's the turning of the leaf that Ayr United needed to sort of stop the rot and try and push on a wee bit.
And it's going to be so interesting because, Gary Naismith done a truly incredible job at Stenhousemuir.
Of course.
And obviously he's got them, from League Two for their first ever promotion, to then obviously promotion through the playoffs, to the Championship. So it's a truly incredible achievement, and obviously, there's going to be that interesting dynamic of him coming up against his old side, but I think he really deserves the opportunity at Ayr United, and they had an excellent League Cup group stage where I think they won 4 out of 4. Or they certainly made it through, didn't they, Cam? And they've set themselves up a real mouth-watering tie against Kelly in the second round of the League Cup, which will be fantastic for everybody down in Ayrshire for the derby there.
Yeah.
So I think when you're looking at Ayr just now, they've had a great League Cup campaign. They've got a good manager in. They've got a decent squad there. 5th place. That kind of feels about where they'll be.
Yeah. Obviously in agreement. I think that'll be a pretty solid season for them, all things considered. Now, top 4. This is where the money's made.
It has.
This is obviously the playoff positions. This does not obviously mean promotion, but it's a chance. And then my first promotion spot is Wraith Rovers.
Interesting. Well, I've got Inverness, which in hindsight I'd maybe, push Wraith up to 4th, bump Inverness to 5th, Ayr to 6th. In hindsight, I'd maybe do that. But as I said previously, I'll let you speak about Wraith in a minute, but for me, Inverness, as I said earlier, I think they've signed well. I think they're in an upward trajectory just now.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to be a really, really interesting side to watch. And I think if they can get a wee bit of that, almost a fear factor in the Highlands back, and fans might look to travel up there, but sides certainly didn't for a long time.
Yeah.
I think if they can get that back, they'll be a formidable opponent. I think Inverness will be the most interesting side to keep an eye on this season, to see how they adapt from, as we spoke about earlier, basically going out of business, to almost, potentially going back to the Premier League. It's some story for Inverness, it really is.
100%, yeah, for sure. It would certainly be interesting to see. It's been a long time since they've been back up in the top division. Now it'd be certainly a fairy tale return if they manage to do it. Back-to-back promotions, even if it did end up being through the playoffs. In terms of Wraith Rovers, though, for my pick of 4th, I don't think I need to say any more than Wraith Rovers are a good team.
You said that.
Wraith Rovers are a good team, Jack. And I think they're gonna finish in 4th. They have made some good signings. They've got a great squad, really good team. I'm just I've got confidence in this one. I think they're gonna finish in the playoffs this year. And I'm finally gonna be vindicated for the comment I've been making for 3 years.
Absolutely, and Dougie Imrie could be the man to do that, unbelievably.
Oh God, I know I hate that, but yeah.
But it's going to be so interesting, so interesting, and what that's just making me realise, Cam, is the 3 teams that are left.
Yeah.
Still both the same 3 teams for either of us, and I'm just wondering whether we're going to be putting them in the same order, because I guarantee
we aren't.
I've got a guarantee though that you put, like me, Dunfermline at 3rd.
I certainly did.
Talk to me about your thinking behind that. What's making Dunfermline that team that's going to finish in 3rd and not maybe 1st or 2nd?
That's a good question. I was about to start going from the other perspective. You've thrown me with that one, actually. Why aren't they going to be? I don't know. That's a really good question, actually.
It's almost as if that's what I get paid to do.
That's a stump me a wee bit. Maybe it's just the team coming down. Is obviously always got a little bit of extra about them. better quality players, more money. Partick Thistle have been pushing it hard for years and years and years now, and it just seems likely now anyway, especially with the teams that are in the league, that they'll be top two. But I don't really have anything necessarily to say why Dunfermline won't be better than either of the two of them, but
Yeah.
I just don't quite see it, you know. It's nothing really more than that. They're not, serial, championship contenders or title pushers, and maybe it's just that they just don't have that in their current team at the moment anyway, of necessarily that sort of championship title run team, and maybe it's simply that, but there's nothing to say that they couldn't do better than third, but yeah, no, that's you got me.
Yeah. No. I didn't really mean to throw you like that at all. I just
No, I
kind of
know,
thought I
but
would
yeah,
ask
no,
it from a
it's
different
a good one.
perspective. I'm really impressed by Dunfermline this year. I think me and you spoke very level-headedly on this podcast last season about Dunfermline. I think when you hear certain elements of the media talk about Dunfermline, they get very carried away.
Right.
I think Dunfermline are an excellent. We've seen it right under Lennon in the cups. They are excellent,
Yes.
right? They've done it in the cups this season as well. They went through in the last game away to St Mirren. They won type of
Yeah.
thing. There's all the controversy on
Of
that game, but
course.
we'll
Yeah.
leave that there, right? But for me, the thing that I like about Dunfermline and why I'm putting them at third is, although I believe the two teams above them have ultimately got stronger squads. When Lennon spoke after the St Mirren game, he spoke of the team still having 3 or 4 additions to come. And I
Okay.
feel as though that if they've got the base of what they've got just now
Mm-hmm.
and can add a wee bit more quality, then they will be up there pushing
Yeah.
Thistle and Livy. But until that point happens, I don't think you can put them any higher than third.
Yeah. Yes, agreed. It's hard to base your prediction on something that hasn't happened yet. I think I did do that with Queen's Park last year. I ended up vindicated, but for a long time it didn't look like I was going to be vindicated. It actually took to January essentially to allow me any vindication. But yeah, if Dunfermline do make further additions, then yeah, there's nothing to say that they can't push right on. But moving on to the top two. Dunfermline for me would be pushing on to beat Partick Thistle to second place.
Yeah, well, I was anticipating that obviously when you said we wouldn't be having the same
Yeah,
top two.
so therefore
So
I
yeah,
also anticipated your.
so for the clarity of doubt, listeners, you've went Cam for your top two is.
Second place Partick Thistle, first Livingston.
Yeah, and I've went second place Livingston and first place Partick Thistle. So Cam, I'll give you the floor. Talk me through your thinking.
I think it's down to obviously Livingston are the team that have come down. Yes, it's a very different team to the Livingston that got promoted, but I think in a positive way. They have had a season up in the top division. Yes, it wasn't a great season. Yes, they've come back down. They don't have Martindale anymore. So maybe they certainly have lost something with that. But, obviously a good squad of players. And I don't think I gave them enough credit the last time that they came down. And I can't help but think that I'd be making a mistake if I didn't have them as my favourites to pip going up. Having said that, obviously Partick Thistle pushed St Johnstone extremely tight for good portions of last year, but just fell off a little bit towards the end. And by the end of the season, it was a bit of a golfing point. So I couldn't possibly tell you how many now, but I'm sure with 6 to 8 games left in the season, Partick Thistle were within a couple of points, and then by the end of the season, I'm sure it was over 10 points. So I just maybe doubt the ability to go the whole way, but you're certainly going to push it mighty close in my opinion.
No, that's really interesting to hear the reasoning. I mean, I think the thing I think with Livingston is you're right. You know, Davy Martindale no longer in the dugout. I think is he still up the stairs? You know, remember he moved up the stairs to be like
Yeah,
sporting
something.
director or
Yeah, he
something.
was still
So I
involved,
think
wasn't he?
I think he's still sniffing around. But as you said, him not being in the dugout's a noticeable difference, and I think that's where my question mark appears over
Yeah,
Livingston. It's as Glenn Whelan. You know, it's his first job. You know, as we haven't seen him as a manager before. There's nothing to base what he can do off of.
yeah,
So it's one of those ones. He could be, you know, an unbelievable manager who's destined for far, far, far bigger things than Livingston. On the flip side, though, Cam, it could not work out at all. We could see Glenn Whelan out the door by
for sure.
October, Davy Martindale back in the dugout, you know, and it all changed again.
Yeah.
I think Livingston are going to go one of two ways there. It either is going to be that brilliance of Whelan
Mm-hmm.
and it's all going to click and it's going to work, or there could be a fireball come October.
Definitely, definitely. I think you're probably fairly spot on the money there. It probably is just going to go one of two ways. You know, they're not just gonna, you know, dredge away the season and third place doing okay and everyone just sort of being like, par for the course. It probably is just going to go one of two ways. It's really hard to say. There, obviously, with the managerial change from the last time we saw them. It's hard to quantify Livingston at the moment. They're a new team that we didn't see last year. Lots of player changes since the last time we did see them, including a manager change. You don't even really know how they're going to be playing their football in comparison. Are they going to be playing like they did before? Is there going to be a different style? You've got to imagine at least a little bit. So hard to say. At the moment, it's just the preference of them being theoretically the highest reputation and highest quality club in the division at the moment, but it's all up for grabs this year. It is, as we touched on, it's like earlier seasons, the first season for us where there was a bit more of a chance for some of the other teams, so certainly interesting to see how this one pans out as it goes on.
Absolutely, Cam. I'm absolutely buzzing to find out how it goes on. It's going to be really good, and we all know what the championship's like by now. It's nip and tuck, you know, every week. Anybody from, you know, Morton and Steny up to the top two can take points off of anybody. So we're all in for another wild ride.
Yeah, 100%. And starting off the wild
And we've
ride
got
is this weekend. We're back
yeah, and I was going to say
already.
we've got actual predictions to do as well.
Yes, as we certainly do. We're back proper into the season now. So starting tomorrow at time of recording, first game up is Ayr against Arbroath. Now you took the first prediction for the season long prediction, so I suppose I'll take the first prediction of the games tomorrow. Oh God, Ayr
So you'll
against
go odd weeks, I
Arbroath.
go even weeks.
Yes, let's do that. So
Oh.
Ayr against Arbroath. That's a toughie, man. It's a toughie. I'm going to give Ayr the benefit of the doubt here, and I'm going to go 2-1.
Yeah, yeah. Again, as you said, it's going to be a really interesting start to the season to see where these sides are both at. I'm also going to give Ayr United the win. I'll say 3-1.
3-1, no problemo. Next up, Morton against Partick Thistle. I'm going to go Morton 1, Partick Thistle 3.
No, I'll definitely take that. I mean, I'm also going to go for a Thistle win, and that cannot be surprising based off I've got 10-3 first here in my predictions.
Yeah,
I'm going to go 2-0 Thistle.
0-2, that's locked in. Next up, Inverness against Dunfermline. Away in Inverness, going to be a tough game for sure for Dunfermline. I think so tough that they may in fact even lose in Inverness' first game back in the division. 2-1 Inverness.
See, I've got these sides obviously sitting fourth and third respectively. I'm going to say it's going to be tight. I'm going to go 2-2.
2-2 locked in. Livingston against Queen's Park, obviously very tough game for us, first game back. However, also I don't want to start off the prediction season with a Queen's Park defeat. So I'm just on that. I'm going to go one each.
Oh, interesting. Well, I'm not going to go that way.
I know.
And I'm also not going to go for a Queen's Park win. I'll go for a home win.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say it's going to be quite close. As I said, I'm still going to be, keeping my eye on Livingston in the early part of this season. So I'll say 2-1 Livingston.
2-1, no problemo. And last up, Wraith Rovers against Stenhousemuir. Tough game, first one back for Steny in the one. I think Wraith Rovers are going to win 2-0.
Yeah, again, I agree. I can only see a home win here. I'll give Steny a goal, though. I'll say 2-1 Wraith.
2-1, perfect. So, recap there. Arbroath, Ayr against Arbroath, I have 2-1, you have 3-1 to Ayr. Morton against Thistle, we both have a Thistle victory, you have 2-0, I have 3-1. Dunfermline, I have them to lose against Inverness, you have a 2-all draw. Livingston Queen's Park, I have a 1-all draw, you have 2-1 Livingston. And Wraith against Steny, I've taken Wraith 2-0, and you have taken Wraith 2-1. So that essentially does it there. Obviously, we didn't look over the
The league
results.
predictions, we didn't.
We didn't look over the
The results.
from last year, but we missed so many weeks that I didn't think it made any point for us to go back and
Nah.
look at how much of a lead that I had at the point that we stopped and stuff like that. So there's no need to go back and say that I was the winner last year as well. So I didn't think that we needed to do that. So we won't do that. But yeah, we've now completed our predictions for this year. What do you think? You happy?
Cam, I'm absolutely delighted. I hope listeners listening have enjoyed it, and we're back for another
All the
season. It feels good,
listeners
Cam.
listening.
Although we'll try and record a wee bit earlier on in the week,
Yeah.
so that people have got a wee bit more time ahead of the weekend fixtures moving
True.
forward. So whether that's back to
True.
the Wednesday schedule or whatever it is,
I was
we will
thinking
be
as
back.
well. We maybe publish earlier in the day than we have been. We've been publishing at 5 p.m. But we'll maybe look to pump it out in the morning, seeing as it's pre-recorded anyway, and then that means people
People can
maybe
listen in lunchtime.
listen on the way to work and stuff like that potentially. So maybe a 9 a.m. Live from this season. So we'll trial that and see how it goes.
Definitely.
And yeah, thank you all for
Definitely.
listening to the first episode of season 3 of Referees, a podcast. We'll try and do our best in terms of consistency. Just bear with us.
Exactly. And let us know in the comments everything we've asked, all your predictions, everything, and we will read them out next week. Have a good game. Have a good weekend. See you later.
See y'all. Bye bye.